Hi there, thanks very much for joining me. I'm Dean, this is Woodwork Journey, and today we've got a one-day project, or at least I hope it will be, with the exception of paint, that is going to take this old beast of a lathe, which is, I think, one of the cheapest ones you can get on the internet, and make it usable. Let me tell you more. This old Kinzo lathe used to belong to the one and only Rag and Bone Brown. Now, I went over to see him yesterday and he doesn't use this lathe anymore, and in fact has I'll put a link down below to the vlog he had when he got this and highlighted a bunch of issues with it. Now, when he highlighted about this lathe in his vlog, a lot of people told him that it was going to be too much trouble for its worth and not to bother with it. And I get that. I understand that completely. There is a lot of issues with this lathe. I think it's still available. I think Clark do a version of it, possibly Draper, I don't know. But if you look on them online, they're usually around about 200 quid, often with tools attached to them. Now, I don't know if they're any more stable than these, but one of the problems with this one is that as you tighten up the rear end there on the tailstock, the whole thing starts to bow. It just lifts up in the middle. So we're going to fix that. And in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is get these. I've got these square tubes that actually came off a dog grooming station that someone was getting rid of, and I've got two of these square tubes, and they're going to actually work really nicely underneath the base to help give it some strength and reducing the chances of it bending. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt these into place and hope that helps. Now, something else with this, the overall length of this whole bed here comes out to sort of around about 46 inches, 45, 46 inches. That is way too much. Now, obviously, you haven't got that full turning capacity. That's more like a meter. That's just far too long. I don't need that length, misses, to be messing around with. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to get a square, mark it off at that point, and then I'm going to cut that off. And at this point, the tail end here, we could just unbolt this end section, unbolt it on the top and the bottom, bring it up and put it and rebolt it further up. So just drilling holes and making that a thing. So we're going to make the whole thing shorter, which also should help a little bit with the whole kind of bowing situation. Clearly, we need to do a fair amount of tidying up with it and possibly giving it a respray and all that sort of good stuff. But for the time being, I'm just going to run a wire brush over it and see where we're at. And then I'll probably get some Hammerite and give it a spray of the Direct Onto Rust Hammerite just to tidy it up and make it look a little bit nicer and stop it from getting any worse. As far as speeds go, it goes from 850 to 2510. It is only a 370 watt motor, but I think that'll be okay for what I'm going to be doing with it. Now, regular viewers and others following me on social media will know that media will know that I am actually going to make myself a foot-powered treadle lathe out of an old sewing machine base at some point in time. But when Keith said he didn't want this anymore, I thought it would be a fantastic little project just to get the basics out of the way so I can learn a little bit of turning, and then I'll know what I'm kind of aiming to achieve and problem points for when I am making the treadle lathe. So I figured that little experience would be a good thing. Now, I'm hoping that just cutting this off, shortening it, giving it a tidy up, putting the strengtheners on it, that should all happen today without problem. The other thing is this doesn't have a tool rest or banjo, but I've got some lathe spare parts, not enough to make an actual lathe, but I've got some bits. I've got an old banjo there, or just the top of one, which looks like it might kind of fit on here to some degree. So I might incorporate that, or I might make another one out of ply. I did yesterday just have a quick bash at this. This is actually one of the legs for my table saw that never gets used. So I cut out a bit of birch ply and then just folded over the leg a little bit more, screwed it on, and now that should work as a tool rest to run tools along. So in theory. I've just got to figure out how I'm going to attach this to that, or whatever I'm going to do. And it's obviously got to move in and out that way and that way. So it's got to do a whole bunch of things. Sorry if you can hear the neighbours cutting their lawn, by the way. So yeah, there's a bunch of things to do. It's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I am going to get cracking and see if I can get this mostly done for today. One of the things that I need you to be aware of is that I'm not going to film every single step of the process, because that's just a nightmare and I have no idea what I'm doing. So when I do something and then it works, I've told you what I'm hoping to achieve, but when I do it and if it works, then I'll film a bit saying this is the problem I had, this is, you know, follow me along. Hopefully this won't be a long video. Let's get cracking. Right, so that's shortened it. That's going to be a lot easier to manoeuvre and use now, and a lot smaller, which will be great. So what I'm going to do now is, before I worry about drilling the holes for those, I'm going to get the oh, by the way, what I would say is this base is the flimsiest metal. I mean, I don't know if you saw it in the bit that I just hopefully recorded, but I tried tearing off the last bit of metal off here, and it just bent like a cornflake box. So I would not be buying one of these lathes new, not by a lot. It's going to do fine for what I need it to do, but yeah, I would not be buying this new, to be honest with you, because it's made of cornflake packets. Right, but now I'm going to get a wire brush on here and see where we're at. I'm not going to take the whole motor off this bottom section because I don't think I need to, and it's just a lot of messing around and possibilities for problems. So yeah, just while I wheel this, I'll see if I've got enough. Oh, it doesn't feel like there's very much. I've got a little bit of hammerite paint in there, but if I haven't, I'll just put something on it for the short term, and then we can worry about things after that. Okay, so right here, this has got to go on the top of that. And in order for that to be square, I mean, I'm not really convinced that this is going to be overly square, but let's give it our best shot. We can pop that against there like so. Make sure we're on the ends. And then we can use our marker pen to mark where the holes are. So hopefully we can drill those out without too much of a problem. Alrighty, so I have put a bit of wood under this end. I'm then putting my square roughly in the middle of these things, and then if I roll that into place there, that's pretty much the middle. And then I can slightly oversized drill it using a slightly oversized bit, and if it's not 100% in the right place, then we'll still be okay. I told you the metal was thin. You see how much I'm bending that? A stepped bit will be so much better. Right, let's get things back together and go on to the next stage. Okay, so we are already looking much better. I've just got these bars loose on the other end. I'm eyeballing the center point to drill through these pieces. I did just realize that I could probably use the old bars and get the whole placement from those, because that other end is still usable, but I'm here now. How bad can it go? Right, same on the underside, same with the other one. and then we'll see about getting them bolted back in place. Obviously, just use a file and clean up any swarf so you don't get anything stuck in your fingers. You know me, all about the safety. And there we go. That is now a significantly shorter lathe. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is make some kind of lever so I can attach it to the bolt underneath this, so it's easier to undo when I'm moving that along. Also, what I'm thinking, there's a lot of movement. You see, I've got to spread these out a little bit here and pull them in a little bit here, just so I've got nice tight movement of the rear tailstock all the time. Okay, so what I've done here is this is real tight up the top there, but it can just move out. I've not done these up yet, but I'm just getting this so the centres are almost aligned, and then just getting little taps. And that is going to be where I'm going to tighten these up. I'm going to do the same on this end, and then this should move snugly throughout the whole thing and reduce the chance of side to side wobble, which is going to take this out of being central. Okay, now there's very little side to side play. No matter where it goes, there's absolutely zero there. So yeah, I'm okay with that. It can be adjusted if it wants to later on down the line. Because this is like a hammerite kind of paint or something like that, that's not going to help this move nice and swimmingly. So I do need to rub these down and give them another coat of hammerite or whatever. I mean, everything needs another coat of paint. But yeah, that will help this slide and make sure we don't have side-to-side movement. But for now, I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got the tailstock, we've got the headstock, we've got the shorter bars. Now, what I need to figure out... Now what I need to figure out is whether I'm going to use this old banjo from something else, which looks like, I mean, it might do the trick. Just have to have something underneath that sandwiches it. And this is going to be the tool rest. So I've got to figure out how to attach this to that. Now I have thought about using this threaded bar. It's much too small for the hole, but if I put a flat section on it, this should be able to snug it up so that works out okay. Yeah, so I've just got to figure out, I'll stick a bit of wood on this, put a bolt like this through the wood, cut that off along there, make it much shorter so it can go all the way like down here somewhere. It's still going to be too tall, but we'll fanny around with it and figure it out. I'm not doing any bowls on it quite yet. Okay, before I get making the tool rest, I got a little bit too excited. I forgot that we need to strengthen this. Now, these are those bars, again, that I got from a dog grooming table. Now, there's not quite enough space on the outside of these nuts to attach them. I could use longer bolts that go through here and here and attach them that way, but that means I've got to drill the holes in exactly the right place. And that could be problematic for someone like me, maybe. So I think what I might do is I might attach them like so instead. So just under, and that way it doesn't really make any difference where the holes are, as long as they're attached where they need to be. And it'll be a little bit more central. So hopefully, rather than being on the outside, it'll add a touch more strength. But yeah, so I've got some big old bolts. That'll do. Now I'm unsure whether I'm going to go from top to bottom and then put like feet on the bottom of these bolts, or whether I'm going to go from bottom to top and then just screw them down. I've got lock nuts for them, so they're not going to go anywhere. I think it's just time to crack on and get drilling it. I can use the drill press to put these, but once again, not really any kind of accuracy needed. Right, so I've put the bars under this now. They do an okay job, not the best, but better than nothing. So now what I've got is I've just got my sort of make-do tool rest, and I'm attaching it. It's on plywood, and I'm attaching it to a bit of maple. I don't know, and I've not really sort of shown you how I've done this because I don't know if it's really a good idea, to be honest, not going to lie. But we will see. I'm using the forged fast nails and I'm not drilling ahead of time. Oh. I think I just said, but I just use these forged fast 5.0 by 50, and I just bang them straight into the plywood. There's no splitting through the ply, there's no splitting on the hard maple that I'm using there, and that just means that everything is cool. Annoyingly, I put that in the middle and I shouldn't have. I've just realized that because I'm going to put this in the middle. Right, well, that one's going to have to come out. But yes, for now, I've got to drill a hole for this, so that fits in there, and then it's going to sit on a nut, maybe. Right, so if I'm going to use this banjo, then what I can do underneath, because I haven't got anything to go underneath, that will go underneath, that will go and keep everything relatively straight, like so, and then a hole going all the way through, with that over the top. Job's a good one, I think. Okay, so it's now 2 days later from when I finished that last video, I think, or 3, 2, anyway. You can see we've made a bit of a jump. So I'm going to do some close-ups as well, but I'm going to explain to you what's going on. I've not included the making of this tool rest, and that's primarily because I've bodged it together with what I had, and I don't think it's very safe because it does move on occasion. So I'm not going to show anyone how to make that. It's fairly basic and straightforward, and I'm sure you'd figure it out from the close-up. But yeah, so that's about it. The 2 block situation that I was talking about just before this section of the video worked out just fine for the locking system. I've made a handle that goes underneath the bottom of the rear tool rest, or the rear tool thing. Spindle, no, whatever it's called. Anyway, there's a handle on the back of that, and I also made a little handle because there wasn't one on the wheel, so I turned one of them. But yeah, so that's good. Then I gave it all a paint job, and jobs are good. But let me show you, so while I'm talking about this sort of stuff, let me show you some of the aspects to it. So starting at the base, you can see where I chopped off that back end, and that's all come out nicely. Now I did on those rails there, you can see that I actually took the paint off the top completely, pretty much, and then just painted the sides and what have you. And that would mean that that will be able to slide a little bit easier across there, because it was sort of binding on the original paint, let alone the new paint. That's just Hammerite that I've used for all of that, but no, that all works. I haven't done a great job of the paint, to be fair, but you know, it's only for my workshop, so it doesn't really make any difference. I did just have a bit of giggles and put my put the speeds on there, and I made a little Kinzo. I figured their silver logo was a bit crap, so I thought I'd make my own. So yeah, I made that, and then just sort of stuck them on, and away we go. But that is obviously strengthened underneath as well, but that's a lot better looking than it was. Okay, so what I've got here are the Silverline set that you can get on Amazon. They're about 20 quid, and they're absolute rubbish. They really are bad, but I couldn't afford anything else, and I wanted to turn something. So previously, in fact, what I'll do is I'll play some sort of turning video bits as we get through this bit, and I'll sort of make me all little and small. But no, I have been using these. They're not high-speed steel, so you'd be surprised how quickly the friction can get them hot and start sort of losing hardness, because they start going a bit rainbowy colour. But the sharpening is still something that I am getting to grips with. I'm using my belt sander or my grinder at the moment. I'm not sure which one I'm going to stick with, but I'm going to work through that and figure out the best way forward for that one. I could do with a grinding wheel on my little bench grinder. It's only a little kind of cheap and cheerful one, but if I think they're kind of real angry grit jobbies on there at the moment. So I think if I got sort of like a, I don't know, 100 grit or something stone for that might be useful. I don't know. But yeah, so my thinking is, and literally everybody has said, don't put any effort into sorting out the lathe because it's always going to be crap, and don't buy cheap tools because it'll put you off wood turning. And I fully understand both of those premises. However, in my thinking, first of all, I can't afford anything else, so it is what it is. But second of all, if I can make things quite pleasant with the sort of the cheap lathe and the cheap tools, then when I then graduate onto doing something with a nicer lathe or nicer tools, then yeah, it's going to make all the difference. And that, I think, is going to be quite an experience if I decide to keep it up. This isn't going to turn into a wood turning channel now. I'm only going to do the occasional bits and bobs on it. So I'm not going to blow a load of money on something if I had it. And then not use it a great deal, you know. So I'm going to use this as and when I can, and for whatever projects and stuff, and enjoy it. But yeah, I'm not gonna lose my mind over it. So no need to tell me about, you know, it's just shiny shit that you've done, Dean, because I'm fully aware. But you know, so on to stuff that I've made. Alrighty, so let me show you what I did. This was my first go at turning, and this was I was actually using a hand gouge for hand chiseling, and I just sharpened the outside of it because I didn't have my tools at that moment in time. And yeah, so that's what I used with that. And then I went on and did this, which you can tell the difference that using a nice hardwood makes, because that made my life a lot easier. Still not perfect, a couple of issues down the bottom there. We had a bit of chip out going on, but as far, it's like a candlestick holder, but because I don't have a chuck, I can't actually drill in the top there because it's a bit dangerous on the old pillar drill. But yes, a candlestick holder without being able to put a candlestick in. Now those are what I used the inappropriate tools for, and those I did on the night that I'd pretty much finished doing the lathe, other than the paint job and the stickers. So yeah, then I got the actual tools, and that's when I sort of carried on practicing. I tried a different bit of wood to see what was going on there. I was doing a bit of skew practice. That was some green wood, obviously heavily split down the middle there, but that I think might have been birch or something. And I wanted to see what that's like. That's just been in an undercover Anderson shelter. That, I'd have no idea what was going on there, but you know, all practice. Then I made this bowl, and this is something that I was quite pleased with. It's riddled with woodworm, which sucks, but again, I don't have a chuck or anything, so I made it between centres, which is why the inside there is a bit ropey, and it got a little hole on the back there. But yeah, I made it between centres, and I don't think you could do anything else like that. But it's not a bowl; it's a little dish, like a little ring dish, or something like that. But I was quite pleased about that. That came out pretty well. And then finally, the last thing that I made the other day, and that is my mallet. I laminated a couple of pieces of wood together. We've got some in the middle is some maple, and on the outside is some, I believe it's walnut, I could be wrong. And yeah, again, between centres, and that came out really nice. It's just a nice little chiseling mallet to be cracking on with. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. So this is my little wood turning lathe. Yes, it's a little Kinzo. Yes, it's cheap as chips. I think the Clark one at the minute you can pick up for like 200 quid with tools. And Clark do a version, I think, and Sealy do a version. A bunch of people do a version of it. I would not recommend going out and buying one of these. Absolutely not. But if someone offers you one, then by all means snap it up if you want to get an experience turning. But this is what I'm going to go with for the foreseeable. I'm going to change the tool rest at some point to it's a little bit safer, but no, otherwise I'm quite happy with this, and it's been a really, really interesting project to kind of get going, and now I can turn stuff, which is really cool. I'm going to practice when I can, but like I said, after this video we can then get back to some other woodworking stuff, shall we? And so that is finally it. Thank you so much for watching. If you feel that this video was worth it, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe hit the subscribe button and follow along with what else I do on the channel. I know a bunch of you watch that aren't subscribed, and it would really help me out on this little tiny channel if you wouldn't mind. That would be super. But that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will speak to you very, very soon. Bye-bye.